Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Bhagiri Vanadari. Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Bhagiri Vanadari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Bhagiri Vanadari. Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Bhagiri Vanadari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Yamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Asutara Sattasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shama Kund Radha Kund Gira Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Chalosi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories of Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani. Nirvisesa Sanya. 8 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 18, Text 4, titled Prithu Maharaj Milks the Earth Planet. Tanadishtatiya samyag upayan purvadarsitan avarda sradhaya peta upayan vindaten jasa tanatishtati yat samyag upayan purva darsitan avarda shradhayo peta upayan vindaten jasa tan atishtati ya samyag upayan purvadarshitan avarda shradhayo peta upayan vindaten jasa tanatistitiyan samyag upayan purvadarshitan Sadhayo peta upayan vindaten jasa anatishtatiyan samyag Tanatistitiyan samyag upayan purvadarshitan avarda sadhaya pota upayan vindaten jasa tanatistitiyan samyag upayan purvadarsitan avara sadayo peta upayan vindate jasa Tanatishtanyan samyag upayan purvadarsitan tan those Anishtati follows. Yaha, anyone who. Samyak, completely. Upayan, principles. Purva, formally. Darshitan, instructed. Avara, inexperienced. Sradhaya, with faith. Upati, being situated. Upayan, the fruits of activities. Vindate, enjoys. Anjasa, very easily. Translation: one who follows the principles and instructions enjoyed by the great sages of the past can utilize these instructions for practical purposes. Such a person can very easily enjoy life and pleasures. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The Vedic principles, Mahajano Yena Kata Sapunta, urge us to follow in the footsteps of great liberated souls. In this way, we can receive benefit in both this life and the next, and we can also improve our material life. By following the principles laid down by great sages and saints of the past, we can very easily understand the aim of all life. The word avara, meaning inexperienced, is very significant in this verse. Every conditioned soul is inexperienced. Everyone is a bodha jata, born a fool and rascal. In democratic government at the present moment, all kinds of fools and rascals are making decisions. But what can they do? What is the result of their legislation? They enact something today just to whimsically repeal it tomorrow. One political party utilizes a country for one purpose, and the next moment another political party forms a different type of government and nullifies all the laws and regulations. This process of chewing the chewed, puna punas charvita charvananam, will never make human society happy. In order to make all human society happy and prosperous, we should accept the standard methods given by liberated persons. Can you repeat the translation? One who follows the principles and instructions enjoined by the great sages of the past can utilize these instructions for practical purposes. Such a person can very easily enjoy life and pleasures. Gyana timirandasya gyananjana salakaya chaksulan militam jaina tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Svaya Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapatandikam Vancha Kopa Tirubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So, very nice to be back here at Radha Parthasarathi Temple. Every time I come, I see more devotees here, many nice young devotees, and I always see more enthusiasm here. Gopal Krishna Maharaj, he's created a very wonderful atmosphere here, as he does everywhere. Actually, it's one of my favorite places to come. I, of course, never stay very long, always coming and going to Vrindavan, but I genuinely see very wonderful devotees here, and just like to express my appreciation for how everyone is always very nice. He's taught very important principles here, Vaishnava etiquette, and I see that so many devotees have, and it's a very important and very wonderful aspect. This verse is also very, is this going loud and soft, or is it me? It's a very important verse and purport here. I just came from Kathmandu. I was at the temple there at Kathmandu. And back 100 years ago and more, of course, in the center square, which was also the residence of the king. They had a king there just 100 years ago. in the last few hundred years. And the devotee who brought me there, he was showing me, and all these places now, they're closed on the inside. On the outside, they're open. They're attractive wood, many wood-carved buildings. And it's a big tourist attraction, of course, to go there. And that was the king's palace. And that whole area there, several acres, were his different palaces. But one of them was Jagannath Temple. Another one was Radha Krishna Temple. So we're Vaishnava community, a very nice Vedic Vaishnava community. And then he showed me the king's residence. Now this was just 100 years ago, 150 years ago. And in the king's residence, up on the second floor, there was, like a veranda, and there was a window. And down on the ground, there was a tower, and there was a bell. So Nepal, of course, in Kathmandu area is, they have, I forget, he said 60 million people there now. But not a really big country. But in that spot, that bell was there for the citizens. And he said that any time of the day or night, if one of the citizens of the country had a problem, they would ring that bell. This is just 100 years ago, imagine. And when they rang that bell, the king, whether it was nighttime, daytime, whatever it was, he would come there. And then he would say, "What is the difficulty?" He would say, "What's your problem?" And then they would say what their problem was. And then he would take care of it and say, "Okay, now you can go back to your home." So this is what Srila Prabhupada is referring to in this verse. This is the point of good government. And this is what he says, a person who understands instructions. And it's most important for the leaders to understand the instructions of government, the higher principles of life, the purpose of life. And then he can give good guidance, and then everyone will be happy. So even at that time, just a few hundred years ago, this was still going on. We know, we read Prabhupada's books, we always know these ideas of Vedic society. This was it. No one should be unhappy within society. But it was the duties of the leader to see that everyone in society followed the proper principles. So that's what we're talking about here, these principles. And when Prabhupada came to the West, of course, none of these principles were being followed. He gave us actually what in Vedic society was very simple. Just like we know in Christianity, sometimes Prabhupada would talk about the Christian principles and the rules, the commandments. And he would always quote, of course, fifth commandment. He would say, what is the fifth commandment? Thou shalt not kill. So why is there such a commandment? Because people are killing. You don't have to enact these different laws. If you look in the commandments, you'll see these laws, these regulations, these commandments are there because people in general weren't following. When I read this verse in the purport, it always reminds me of Srila Prabhupada when he went to Paris. This was 1973, around September of 1973. So at that time they had gotten Bhaktivedanta Manor. So Prabhupada went to London, and he stayed there for almost 2 months outside of London. But for 1 week, he went to Paris. And there he also installed Radha Paraswari. You'll see pictures of that. Prabhupada at the installation ceremony. Radha Krishna deities are there. And in some pictures, Prabhupada, you see him, Radharani, he's going like this to her cheek. She had a little spot, I guess because she was Paraswari, so she had this little mole like on her cheek. Prabhupada, he He was trying to rub it off her cheek. Of course, it wouldn't come off. So while he was there, and this was something Prabhupada did not do very often, what Prabhupada would do from his room, he would invite people to come see him, because he was the instructor. He was giving instructions. But in this case, they had arranged for Srila Prabhupada to go to the mayor's palace, the mayor's mansion in Paris. So Srila Prabhupada, he accepted that invitation in order to preach. For preaching, Prabhupada would accept any invitation. But you could see he wasn't pleased with that concept. Because when you go to see someone, that means you're accepting an inferior position. Someone comes to your house, they're taking invitations. So then you're providing, you're the guest. So Prabhupada was being the guest. And us, Prabhupada's disciples, in our immaturity, we were not very aware. We say we were not very savvy. We were not very aware of the proper way to do things, even in dealing with Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. So I was brahmachari still at the time. I was just 23 years old, and I had the recorder, and we would always record everything. So, of course, whenever you go to a politician's place, usually there's a whole, before you go see them, they see you, you go through this whole series of instructions, the proper way. Maybe some of you, just like before you get initiation, you're instructed how to do this, how to do that, how to offer your respects, what to say, what not to say. So in political circles and higher realms of politics, also everything is very careful. Just like some cultures will say, well, some cultures you're shaking hands, other cultures you're offering namaste. So all these things you're supposed to know. Of course, the French, very proud people. The country of France, they're very proud of their country, proud of their language. So, of course, none of these instructions were given there. Prabhupada, he wasn't one to sit down and neither listen to these things, and even if there were some, perhaps we weren't paying very close attention. And as Prabhupada's disciples, we really had not a lot of respect for anyone outside the circle of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada had kind of trained us in a very special way that unless one was a devotee, especially politicians, politicians we don't have very high regard for. As he mentions here in the purport, always changing, chewing the chewed. Everyone comes in, they have their own agenda, depending on who they're trying to please, who's giving them money, who's giving them their bribes. Who's ever giving them lots of money, then they're trying to please them. So that's constantly changing. So that was more or less our mood. We went in just to be with Prabhupada, to hear from Prabhupada. But then there was this whole very fluffy ceremony that took place. And I remember the mayor, he was a tall man, and his secretary was there. She was like whatever, personal assistant. She was female. And so she was trying to make sure things went off in a proper way. So, and as I say, the devotees, we were not very prepared. So they gave Prabhupada a garland. The disciples gave Prabhupada this garland. But the purpose of the garland, Prabhupada was supposed to put it on this politician. So of course Prabhupada wasn't interested in garland. He put it on himself. He thought he didn't have a garland, so he just put the garland on himself. So then everyone was all realizing what was supposed to happen. They were all very disturbed. So then they hurriedly made another garland. They had some flowers left. They made a garland, and of course this garland was like this big. So they, they tried to put it on the mayor, and it was like a choker around his neck. So then he spoke something in very French. You heard the French language, huh? Very flowery language. Very. Prabhupada, when he was in France, he also listened. Prabhupada he could hear very nicely. I remember once he was sitting in his room there in Paris, and he did a little imitation of the French language, and he just went, foo, 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 foo. That's what he heard, foo, 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 foo. Yeah. So I don't think he was very impressed with all that foo, 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 foo. So he spoke, and he just, I guess, spoke as they do. They never say anything very committal. Huh? When the politician speaks, he always tries to speak in a way that everyone hears something, they're content. Huh? You don't want to upset anyone. You're asked a question, you respond with another kind of a question. You don't give a direct, straight answer. And of course, this was never the way Prabhupada did things, because Prabhupada spoke from a different level of instructions. Being with Prabhupada for a long time, I was always filled with so much amazement how everything that he gave us always came from Shastra. Even he would tell you some interesting story. I know here many times I've told the story about how I would go in, Prabhupada would be reading his books, and he would say, you just read this one book, you can be Krishna conscious, you don't have to read. So over 2 years, 3 times I went into his room, and each time, whatever book he was reading, he'd say, just read this book. And then the final time when I went in, and he said, you don't even have to read the whole book, just this Krishna book. He said, just this one story. And then he said, don't even read the whole story, just one page. So he went on, and then just one line, and then he said, just one word. But even that, which was very personal, but it was also right there in Shastra. This comes right out of Shastra. This is our business. You open these books, any book, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. If you just open the book and read anywhere, immediately your consciousness is changed. You can become Krishna conscious immediately. So even that instruction, which to me seemed was very profound, but very simple, but it was also from Shastra. So everything Prabhupada gave us, he took from Shastra. He didn't talk from this speculative position, this changing position. They're always changing. When I was growing up, I remember, of course, in my home, I was very fortunate. My mother, we always had butter on the table. We never had this margarine. They go margarine, this vegetable oil, imitation butter that they put food coloring in, so many things. So when I was growing up in the 60s, that became very popular. Why? Because they said butter is bad, very bad for you. Too much cholesterol, too much fat, all will ruin you. So this went on, and in the West, and here it goes on as well now. The culture here is adopted very nicely all the Western ideas, advertisement, just filling your head with so much nonsense all the time, and we accept it. You hear it over and over and over. I just saw one very famous politician whose name escapes me. He said, it is easier to fool the people than to explain to them that they're being fooled. It's much easier just to fool someone than to sit that person down and saying, everything you're hearing is nonsense. You're a fool. That's what it says. We all come in here inexperienced and foolish. So how fortunate are we to come into Srila Prabhupada's presence? after being at the temple in Kathmandu. You know, you go to different temples and you see different atmospheres, different consciousnesses there. And again, to come here is to be in Vrindavan, to go to these centers is so nice because you see, and we have to be careful not to become ritualistic about it. But it's so nice that you greet the deities, and then we take Srila Prabhupada on procession, and he circumambulates all the deities. He goes around 3 times. Every day we're doing this. Look how much time every day you spend with Srila Prabhupada. How much time of the day? From the moment you come in the morning, Mangalarti, what do we chant? The prayers are to the spiritual master. Then you come in, you greet the deities, you have some kirtan, you have Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada. How much emphasis? Sometimes, you know, there's always, just like in this, the different schools of thought. This is also there within ISKCON. You know, there's some schools of thought say that Prabhupada has been put into the background. There's not enough emphasis on Srila Prabhupada. Then there's another school of thought that says we're too Prabhupada conscious. So much emphasis on Srila Prabhupada, and we have to move on in Krishna consciousness and not just stay in this thing. But who gave this emphasis about Srila Prabhupada? Who gave us this emphasis? In worshiping Srila Prabhupada every day, half of the morning is spent in offering prayers to Srila Prabhupada. So who gave us that? Rakesh, who gave us? Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada gave us these instructions. If this society is to be successful, we always have to keep Srila Prabhupada there. He's there in the center every day. But I see as I travel, especially as the next generation comes and the next generation comes, how easy it is to, you know, we can take, just like these books. Prabhupada never speaks about himself, 60, 70, 80 books. You're not going to find anything Prabhupada talking about himself. Talking about Krishna, talking about the acharyas, the great sages in the past. This is what he says, following in their footsteps. But the footsteps we follow, they're right there in front of us. You don't have to go very far. The lotus footsteps, they're right there at the Vyasasan. They're right there on the altar. You know, the other day, last month, we had the opening, 40th anniversary of the installation of Krishna Balaram, the opening of the temple, the installation of the deities in the temple there. So, Srila Prabhupada, of course, in Vrindavan, I always said Prabhupada in Vrindavan, he was like the temple president in Vrindavan. I never saw any other temple where Prabhupada himself oversaw all the different activities to make sure that everything was done proper, because it was Vrindavan. You know, so many millions of people are coming there every year. He wanted to ensure that that temple was seen by everyone in Vrindavan as the bona fide temple, bona fide Radha Krishna temple, Krishna Balaram temple. Not that it was, rumors were there that this is some nonsense temple that's come just in the past. And of course we see the result of Prabhupada's efforts is it's the most visited temple in all of Vrindavan. You go there, you know, if it wasn't for Krishna's kindness in that rope, the rope in front of the deities, and having been around a long time, whether one is deserving or not, you get to take darshan of the deities. Otherwise, very difficult to get any lengthy darshan of the deities. Always people are rushing them through. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. This is Krishna Balaram Mandir. But what did Prabhupada do there at this very temple? He would go there, Gaurnitai altar, just like here, every altar. He's offering his obeisances to the lordships. And who's sitting there right on the altar at the foot of Gaurnitai? Srila Prabhupada. He placed his murti there. Imagine such a situation. Prabhupada placed his murti, his guru's murti, on the altar, and then he's offering obeisances there. But he's teaching us. You know, he knew he wasn't going to be around very long. He was setting everything up. And this will go on as long as this ISKCON society goes on. He's the first person whose footsteps we're to follow are Srila Prabhupada's. As soon as you come into the temple, you have to offer your obeisances as Srila Prabhupada. As soon as you go to the first altar, the first person you see there is Srila Prabhupada. So he's the most significant person for us in our training in Krishna consciousness. Everything we do, everything, all your prayers, you have your spiritual master, but you have Srila Prabhupada there as your grand spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada is founder Acharya of ISKCON. As he would say, I am ISKCON. Sometimes a disciple would say, Prabhupada, I like you, I love you, but I don't like ISKCON. This would happen. This isn't just going on now, 50 years later. This was going on in Prabhupada's presence. Because everyone loved Prabhupada. There was never an issue that we had this desire, this love for Prabhupada, desire to serve Srila Prabhupada. But they would say, Prabhupada, I want to serve you, I love you, but your disciples, I can't deal with them. ISKCON, this ISKCON society of yours, I can't. And Prabhupada said, but I'm ISKCON. Yes, Prabhupada, but even then this was going on. I was sitting there many times. Prabhupada was like that. But he was so merciful, he would say, then you can come travel with me, he would say. You write me directly, I'll instruct you, I'll give you instructions, I'll give you your service. Always picked everyone up, always gave everyone facility. I was applying Chandan on Prabhupada. This time of year is so nice, Chandan Yatra, when you come. And, you know, some temples, even big temples, even in the wintertime, everyone's wearing sweaters and hats. You'll see even Prabhupada on the Vyasasana, he's had his hat on, and they're still putting Chandan on Prabhupada's forehead. I say, why are you putting it on his forehead now? Well, we decided this is part of our program. But for me, and that's fine, but for me it's a very personal thing, you know. If I see Prabhupada has his bead bag on at the wrong time of the day, I'll take his bead bag off. Sometimes it's cold in the morning, afternoon is hot. If I see he has his sweater on, I take his sweater off. He's a person, just like you're a person. So whenever you see these forms of the Lord, the form of Srila Prabhupada, you're speaking with a person. This is our training. This is what we have to practice understanding. The more you do that, the more you'll actually understand personality of Godhead is there. Personality of Srila Prabhupada is there. Guru Kripa, he tells a story. He was in Bombay in 1971. So also in the summertime, he would go in the room in the morning and he would apply to Chandan to Srila Prabhupada. So one morning, he went in and he had his flower, you know. The Prabhupada said, you don't like me? Yes, Prabhupada, very much. He said to him, why you keep pounding my head? He said, why you keep beating on my head with the chant? So he was like this. So Prabhupada said, why you pounding on my head? Oh, sorry, Prabhupada. I said, you don't like me? So we have to like Prabhupada. We have to be conscious in our service to Srila Prabhupada. Follow in the footsteps. And always remember in Vrindavan, very practical to follow in the footsteps. Sometimes we get confused. That's always an interesting question. What's the difference between imitation, trying to imitate, and following in the footsteps? You know, how do we know what the right one is? And Prabhupada would say, just like the Goswamis. They would sleep under a different tree every night, just a few minutes, just eat a little bit, a handful of food. So you try to do that, that's imitation. That's not practical, you can't do that. Like Prabhupada, he would say, sometimes he would go to take rest. I would be in the room, and he would lie down and he would look at me. He'd say, I hate sleeping. He never hated anything. He said, I hate to sleep. He said, it's a waste of time. He said, I hate to go to sleep. Just a big waste of time. And then he would lie down very nicely and go right to sleep. Very peacefully. He'd say, because we can't imitate. So we have to do what's required. Use our intelligence. So he was in Vrindavan, Vrindavan, land of Krishna, the dust, everything. Krishna's there everywhere. Of course, he's there everywhere, but especially he's there in his home, where he appears. When he comes to this place, he appears there in Vrindavan. He lives, his childhood pastimes are there. All his dust is all sacred. So there's always that, is always there too. Some devotees, way back there in the 70s, most of us, we always wore shoes, even walking around Vrindavan. But now, of course, there's many, they think you have to be barefoot. We see so many pilgrims come, they're always barefoot. So on a morning walk, one devotee asked Prabhupada, should we wear shoes or should we be barefoot? So Prabhupada said, you follow in my footsteps. So Prabhupada had his footsteps, they had shoes on. Prabhupada always wore shoes. He walked out of his room, he put shoes on. Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, in Mayapur, in Los Angeles, wherever it was. His shoes were always right there at the door. He came inside, he took his shoes off. He went outside, he put his shoes on. So in this way, he said, you follow in my footsteps. So his footsteps, they had shoes. So we can follow his footsteps. So in France, this politician, he delivered some flowery words, just being nice, greeting Srila Prabhupada, all the devotees, how we can all somehow do something together to help society. So then Prabhupada's turn came. And the French, especially, more than any other country, they speak their language. They speak French. They don't English. There's no second language, whether it be English or anything else. Like here, like me, I can travel most anywhere, and only speaking English, I can survive. Usually you'll find someone speaks English. But in France, even they know English, they won't respond to you. There's so much pride they have. So he spoke, and Yogeshwar, he was translating for Prabhupada. So then Prabhupada spoke. Of course, Prabhupada, he was never wishy-washy. Prabhupada never watered the philosophy down, especially in such an atmosphere with politicians. These were the people, they can do something. They can change society. They can apply the principles of Vedic culture. So Prabhupada just smashed. He just went. He said, your leader here, your business is to teach society, is to train the society in the proper thing to do. This is what Prabhupada always did. He never wavered from doing the proper thing, giving proper instruction. That was his duty. So he may have been a guest, but he didn't just sit back and offer flowery words. It's so nice to be here. This beautiful place, your beautiful country. This is what normal people would do. Normal, inexperienced fools and rascals. These are the normal people. But experienced person of intelligence would take the opportunity to try to give some good instruction. So that's what Prabhupada did. It was very unfortunate the tape recorder didn't work that day. There was no recording of what Prabhupada said, and he was especially very powerful. You could see what Prabhupada was saying, that he was not mincing words. It was very, very strong what he was doing. So he always took that opportunity, especially when someone was in that position of a teacher. I always tell the one in Australia. Prabhupada went to Australia in 75, also same year, 1975. He stayed in Perth, Australia for a week. Perth, Australia was the west coast of Australia. It was like Calcutta on the east coast, Bombay on the west coast. So this was, all the temples were on the east coast. They were all the big cities. Perth was on the west coast by the sea, but it was like a beach resort in the summertime. So they brought Prabhupada there, and he stayed at one devotee's parents' house, a vacation home, holiday home. So there was just 5 or 6, Prabhupada, myself, his secretary, and 2 other brahmacharis, local Australian brahmacharis, stayed there. So there were just 5 of us. No temple, we're just staying in this house. So as soon as Prabhupada arrived, he said to the one, he said, "So what's our program?" And he said, "Oh, well, we're going to be here for a week, and then we're going to go to Sydney, or Melbourne, it'll be the installation, they're getting everything ready. And in the meantime, Prabhupada, he was supposed to rest, Prabhupada, because he hadn't been feeling well, so he was going to rest." And Prabhupada said, "What's the program?" He wanted to know what the morning program was. Not that it was, a house is a house because it's not a temple, because there's no program. As soon as you have a program, that's a temple. As soon as there's a program. So he's saying, what's the program? When are we going to rise? When is morning walk? When is class? Who's coming? He said, arrange for people to come. I can speak to them. He said you can bring politicians, bring teachers from the schools, bring anyone. He said that's his program. He wasn't going to rest, just sit there. Like some of us do, Westerners, we like to go sit on the beach and lie in the sun and get dark. The dark people want to get light. In this country they sell lightening agents. In America they sell darkening agents. Fools and rascals. Everybody's fools and rascals. Whatever they are, they're not happy. That's the point. No one's happy. So whatever you are, you want to be the opposite. You figure, because I'm not happy like this, better I'm dark and I'm unhappy, so let me become light. If I'm light, let me become dark. Whatever it is, we want the opposite, because we're not happy. So Prabhupada said you invite people. So different people came. It wasn't Australian community. People are very nice, very friendly, very outgoing, very simple. When I was in that country, I always noticed how everyone seemed just very happy. You say happy-go-lucky. Huh? They just went with everything. So one evening, Prabhupada was speaking. They brought a teacher. He was a high school teacher. And Prabhupada, so what did he do? He's a teacher. So Prabhupada's telling him what to teach. What are you teaching? What is the value of your education? You don't even teach the difference between body and soul. That I'm spirit, soul, servant of Krishna. So Prabhupada would speak like that. People were coming to see him, and then Prabhupada would pound them over the head. All fools and rascals, these inexperienced fools and rascals, he would say. So then what was his description? He said, all third-class men. Everyone's third class. And Prabhupada, when he would get going, then he wouldn't stop. Not just third class, he said fourth class. Everyone is fourth class. And he was a young man, maybe in his 30s or so, 30 years old or so. And he must have been receptive, because Prabhupada was really trying to bring him up very quickly. One day he was going to educate this. Prabhupada had 1 hour to educate this rascal. He said, everyone's fourth-class men because they don't know. They're all teaching nonsense. Then he got, not even fourth class, 10th class. Prabhupada had a way with numbers, you know. Sometimes he would ring his bell. I'd come in, he'd say, I've been ringing for 5 years. This bell. We could say he sometimes would exaggerate things, but letting you know you're a big fool and rascal as well. So he said, not even fourth class, 10th class men. He said, everyone. And Prabhupada's speaking to him. He's right in front, like you, right there. And me and Paramahamsa Swami, we're sitting on the side of the room, and we're like, we felt sorry for this man. Prabhupada was just beating him over the head. He said, and you're a 10th class man. Prabhupada. But the man was sincere, and Prabhupada knows everyone's heart, you know. So then the man said, well, what can I do? How do I become first class? And Prabhupada said, you have to hear. He said, you have to hear from the pure devotee. Then you can become first class. And then the man said, who is that? Who is the pure devotee? And Prabhupada looked. They're pure devotees. He pointed to Paramahamsa and me, and we were sitting there going, poking each other. Prabhupada called us pure devotees. You know? So this is a pure devotee. Never say, you listen from me, I'm a pure devotee. No, he pointed to us, say, they're pure devotees. You know, we're going, oh, no. We're not pure devotees. Prabhupada's a pure devotee. But that's what Prabhupada would do. He didn't just, we say, schmooze in English. It's actually a Jewish word, schmooze. Didn't just schmooze, try to make nice, make friendly. He didn't care. He wasn't looking for big donation or anything. He thought best thing is I've got a few minutes with this person. Let's try to make him Krishna conscious. Let's give him Krishna consciousness. That's his business. Then everything else would follow. Everything would follow automatic. Of course, Prabhupada's potency was there because he was pure devotee. So what's the business of a pure devotee? You just repeat what you hear from the sages and the saints. That's our business. Prabhupada said we don't have to invent anything. Everything is there. He said you just repeat. You repeat it in your own words. He said then you're a pure devotee. Then it's coming through perfectly. So, any questions or comments? We have a couple of minutes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. You gave very nice class, and through purport, you brought Srila Prabhupada in the center. So this is very nice. Today's Jahanu Saptami, very auspicious day. So today is the appearance day of Mother Ganges. So Mother Ganges, when she was coming from Mount Sumeru, and she came in the Kailash hill, and Lord Shiva held Mother Ganges in his locks, and then Lord Shiva released. Then she came to Himalayas, and King Bhagirath was leading the path to Ganges, because his ancestors have gone to hellish planets. So he wants to deliver his ancestors, and he came. King Bhagirath came. His chariot came through Navdeep, and from Navdeep, one is Jahanudeep. Out of 9 islands, one is Jahanudeep. So from that place, when he was passing, that At that place, Jahnu Muni was there. Jahnu Muni and Mother Ganges, she did not care. She could pass from this side or that side, but she flowed. उसको क्या कहेंगे जो बहा दिया ना उन्होंने, बहा दिया, उनका आश्रम बहा दिया, swept away. Mother Ganges swept away his ashrama. Then he became angry, and out of anger he drank Ganges. So this is the day when Jahnu Muni drank the Ganges. So wonderful event. See, he drank the Ganges, and King Bhagirath, he was seeing Mother Ganges is following his chariot, but no Ganges. Now disappeared. Ganges disappeared. Then Bhagirath came to know that she is very powerful, and he drank Ganges. Then he बंदन किया, प्रार्थना की, prayed. Then he prayed to Jahnu Muni. And this Jahnu Deep is actually representing Vandana Bhakti. Out of 9 devotional service, Vandana Bhakti. So King Bhagirath prayed to Jahnu Muni. Then Jahnu Muni released Mother Ganges from his right ear. And in this way, Mother Ganges became the daughter of Jahnu Muni. That's why she is called Jahnavi. So this is the history of Mother Ganges. Although she was born from the lotus feet of Krishna, but again she took birth from Jahnu Muni, and she received the name Jahnavi. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Srutasam asmi Jahnavi. So Mother Ganges accepted one father. He is Jahnu Muni. Mother Ganges is our mother, and Jahnu is father of our mother. So Jahnu. And this Jahnu Muni comes in the dynasty of moon. From Vishnu came Brahmaji, from Brahmaji came Atri, and from Atri came Som or moon god, and from moon god Buddha, from Buddha Pururava, from Pururava the king Vijay, from Vijay Bhima, then Kanchan, then Hotrak, then Jahnu. So this was the king, actually this was the king Jahnu, but these kings, they were very great kings, and after when their son was grown up, then they give the son the whole kingdom, and they go to forest. So this Jahnu Muni was actually performing austerity in the forest. So this Navdeep was at that time forest. Mother Ganges was passing from there. Now this is not forest, now it is inhabited, but at that time this was forest. So this is Jahnu Saptami, very auspicious day that Mother Ganges was drunk, and then she was released. In this way she took birth from the right ear of Jahnu Muni, and then later on she accepted King Shantanu as her husband, and she gave birth to Bhishma Dev. So this is the pastimes of Mother Ganges. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Any more questions?
One question. We have one question.
Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving the nice, wonderful, practical example of Prabhupada pastimes. While discussing the Prabhupada pastimes in the Australia pastimes, that Prabhupada hammer. So, in order to enhance the Krishna consciousness, the people in general, in practical way. So nowadays, this principle, what the footstep of Prabhupada, sometimes it's seen that in order to get money or strength or something, we pamper or dilate the principle while presenting Krishna consciousness. So how to communicate two things? We are not exactly following that Prabhupada was did as teaching. But here we are diluting and pampering in order to get some strength, money, facility, not enhancing Krishna consciousness. So what is your comment regarding this?
It's Prabhupada's mood. Mood has to be proper mood. Prabhupada's mood was always, he was giving. Giving. When you give, what happens when you give, you give, you give? The tendency, just like on a personal, I always talk personally, like you say, because my service was personal, always personal with Srila Prabhupada so much. So, to be with him, I could see he wanted to give to me. So, over cultivation, over time, your natural desire is you want to give back. You want to reciprocate. But that feeling from Prabhupada was genuine. He didn't need anything. He didn't want anything. And because that purity is there, that desire is so pure to give, that increases your own desire to want to reciprocate. Like I always say, on very simple levels, Prabhupada, he would ring his bell, ding, 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 ding. I'd go in and he'd say, "Can you give me massage now?" He didn't say, "Let's go, time for massage," because that was my business, wasn't it? Traveling around the world just to give massage, just to cook his lunch. But he would ask me, he was so humble, he would say, can you give me massage now? And I would become puzzled. I'd say, yes. I'm sitting in my room waiting to do something, Prabhupada. Please let me give you massage. But that mentality increases your desire. Many times I go around. I told you I was in Kathmandu, and I stayed at one family's house. Oh, such wonderful, wonderful devotees. Such nice service attitude. Father devotee, his children, they became devotees over time. Now they're managing the center there. And the one night, the father was in the room, and the son was saying to me, "Let me introduce you." He said, "He's one of our original life members." He said, "But he's burnt out." You know what burnt out means? It means he's not very ISKCON friendly anymore. He liked this man. He knew him his whole life. He said, but he's not well-wisher of ISKCON anymore. I said, "What happened? They keep asking for money all the time?" He said, "Yes." So there's a way to get money. As some are very expert here. You don't always have to ask. People want to give. You have to put them in a position where they want to do something. I remember I was always puzzled one time. We were in Ahmedabad, and these three Indian men, they were sitting before Prabhupada in his room, and they kept saying, "Prabhupada, you please give us your blessings. We want to build a temple for you." And every time Prabhupada said, "If you want to build a temple, you go on, you build this temple." And they'd say, "No, you please, you bless us, so we build this temple." And every time he said, "No, if you want to build a temple, you go and build a temple." So this went like 3-4 times. And each time Prabhupada would just be very negative. He said, "No." He said, "It's very nice." But my experience with Prabhupada was he understood they were never going to build the temple. They wanted his blessings. But temple wasn't going to happen. And Prabhupada was so compassionate that because he knew it would never happen, he didn't give them that order. They wanted an order. "You please, you tell us, build the temple." Because he knew they weren't going to build this temple. They just wanted to sit there and look very, be very proud, very pompous. "We're going to build you a temple." But Prabhupada didn't accept it. So my only conclusion could be Prabhupada's reading, knowing everyone's heart. He knew it was not the right people, not the right time, so he just kept saying, no, no, no. It's very nice. You want to do, you do. But that's the mercy. Huh? So we have to become like that. We have to become so expert that we understand the hearts of all the different living entities. The soul. You have to cultivate what they can do, what they can't do. And ultimately, everything will come. Prabhupada gave so many, it's late, I have to stop here, but he gave so many instructions in the temple, distributing prasadam. You know, we used to, in the day, worry, it costs so much money. Prabhupada said, you distribute. He said, all day long you should make puri, sabji, halava, distribute. And when it's make for 25, when it's done, you distribute again. He said, this is Radharani's temple. He says, you think she has any lack? You spend the money, money will come. And that's a principle. Anyone in charitable organization knows you spend money to get money. But our principle is you give Krishna, you get Krishna. So it's like that. Okay, so we have to stop here. Thank you all very much. Hope to see you all very soon. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ganga Devi ki jai. Hare Krishna.